I did want to bring you something that I mentioned earlier, and that is this opinion piece by George Will. Okay, he makes the case in no uncertain terms today that Kamala Harris cannot be the standard bearer once Joe Biden goes away, which he argues he needs to do. And hopefully we have our sound bites ready. Steve, do we have those ready to go? Okay. So here's what George Will writes. For the good of the country, Biden and Harris should bow out of the 2024 election. I'm going to read this to you. I said this to Steve Krakauer before we launched the show today, that I wanted you to hear this in full. Vice President Kamala Harris applauds President Biden. Okay. Here he writes, during this autumn's avalanche of political news, an enormous boulder bounced by, barely noticed. It demonstrated why Joe Biden should not seek another term. Democrats should promptly face that fact and this one. An Everest of evidence shows that Vice President Harris is starkly unqualified to be considered as his successor. Now here's the boulder. The boulder, meeting recently with some progressive activists, Biden said his $426 billion student loan forgiveness was accomplished by a law that he had, quote, just signed, quote, I got it passed by a vote or two, end quote. No, he did not. Biden was not merely again embellishing his achievements. This is not just another of his verbal fender benders. There is no less than dismaying explanation. There's no less than dismaying explanation for his complete confusion. What vote? Who voted? Good questions, George. No one, as George well knows. After repeated unilateral extensions of the moratorium on loan repayments until election season, Biden unilaterally implemented the windfall for millions of voters. Congress was not involved in this cataract of money from the Treasury in violation of the Constitution's appropriations clause. Of course, as an aside, this is me talking again. We've talked about this on the show. There was no vote. There was no, I got it passed by a vote or two. He did not. He did it by executive fiat. And yet he's out there completely revising history in a way that, most disturbingly, seemed real to him. He seemed to actually believe it. All right, back to George Will. It is frightening that Biden doesn't know or remember what he recently did regarding an immensely important policy. He must be presumed susceptible to future episodes of similar bewilderment. He should leave the public stage on January 20th, 2025, which would be the end of his first term. So should his vice president. Thomas R. Marshall, Woodrow Wilson's vice president, joked, once there were two brothers. One ran away to sea. The other was elected vice president of the United States, and nothing was heard of either of them again. Kamala Harris has been heard from sufficiently. And then George goes on to say transcripts of her verbal meanderings cannot convey their eerie strangeness. Videos of them should be watched. He's 100% right, and we've played so many of them on the show. He goes on to quote many of them and says, she sounds, as a critic has said, like someone giving a book report on a book she has not read. I'll take you down just a little memory lane. Let's play soundbite 9 as one example.
We will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on.
He goes on, her style betrays a self-satisfied exaggeration of her aptitudes. Lacking natural talent she needs to prepare, but evidently does not. Complacency and arrogance make a ruinous compound. Here's another soundbite cited by George and played previously by us. Kamala Harris, the beauty of the yellow school bus, SOT 8.
I have a particular fondness, I must tell you, for electric school buses. I love electric school buses. I really do, and we're manufacturing them in our country. I've been to the manufacturing plants. I've been on these electric school buses, and think about it. Aside from the pandemic, on a daily basis, 25 million children in our country every day go to school on those diesel-fueled school buses. And hundreds, thousands of school bus drivers are driving those buses, which are then these people, these children, these adults, are inhaling what is toxic air.
So George Will goes on, regarding Biden and Harris, the National Democratic Party faces two tests of stewardship. Its imprimatur cannot again be bestowed on either of them. Biden is not just past his prime, even adequacy is in his past. My God, that may be the perfect sentence. Biden is not just past his prime, even adequacy is in his past. And this is Harris's prime, George Will points out. He concludes, in 2024, the Republican Party might present the nation with a presidential nominee whose unfitness has been demonstrated. Will, as you may know, is no Trump fan. After next Tuesday's sobering election results, Democrats should resolve not to insult and imperil the nation by doing likewise. It's an unbelievable piece. It's a strong piece, and it's a completely fair piece. And it perfectly encapsulates the pickle in which Democrats find themselves, because who's next? Who's next? Gavin Newsom? Good luck once voters get a look at his record. They're not trying to go farther left to get a more squad-like nominee. That person's not going to be acceptable to these Dems who are getting ready to vote for Lee Zeldin in New York. No, right? So who else? You got Pete Buttigieg, he's like 14. He's been a mayor and the transportation secretary during a supply chain crisis that he did absolutely nothing about. That's not going to work. It's not going to happen. They don't have a strong standard bearer. That's why they're in such trouble. That's why we're getting Dark Brandon tonight and Joy Reid in a panic saying the polls are wrong. By the way, we're talking about, I was looking at him, the Cook political report. It's nonpartisan. Both sides acknowledge that. They just shifted 10 more House seats won by President Joe Biden toward the GOP. Nate Silver's 538 just flipped its projection for control of the U.S. Senate to favor Republicans for the first time. Are they part of her weird right-wing cabal? They're in trouble and they know it, at the presidential level, at the congressional level, and soon we're going to have hardcore results by which to judge her kind of nonsense.